Just when you think Arsenal are about to win their first trophy in 6 years, this man appears and drops a routine cross onto Nico O'Reilly's head. It didn't seem like Arsenal were even trying to win, it seemed like they were playing for a draw. In a cup final.
I'm really pleased because I know against the opponent we face, Mikel create a team like is almost unbeatable.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, Chief. Saying this after you've more or less dismantled the team for about 70 minutes is wild. But it's unsurprising. This is Pep Guardiola's brand. He probably told Arteta that Arsenal played well at full time and said it with a straight face, instructing his front line not to press the centre-backs and keeper, confusing not only everyone at home, but Kepa too. There was a moment where Arsenal's keeper was on the ball for about 30 seconds and had no clue what to do with it. And 30 seconds in this context to not be pressed? That's a really long time. This guy was having an awful afternoon, surrounded by the enemy. I hope that chocolate was worth it. Cherky, my boy, this is disrespectful. Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Welcome back. I'm Tinashe. Subscribe if you haven't. Man City is just such a funny team, aren't they? You know, they play like they did against Real Madrid over those 2 legs. Yes, you could say that. I guess the first leg was just a Fede Valverde masterclass, and the second leg was derailed by a red card early in the game. But even still, to then come across and then play against Arsenal, it's odd, isn't it? Okay, so I guess we have a guest in today's episode. Say hello, Meeple. I guess that was hello. Dog sitting. So I thought Arsenal would really be a little bit more into this game. I thought that they would put up a lot more of a fight. They're obviously been the best team in the country for the course of this season, and they haven't won a trophy in like 6 years. I thought it would be a much closer event, but it just wasn't. And a lot of that is on Mikel Arteta, which we'll get into as we go over this over the match. Which let's do that right now. Let's get into the match right now. So Arsenal were great for the first 15 minutes. It took a Trafford triple save very early in the first few minutes to make sure that City were still alive and in the game. And in a cup final where both sides were using their backup keepers, which is what you do in these situations because these are the guys that have gotten you to the final in the first place. It's only right that you put them in goal for the actual final itself. But I think that James Trafford is the one that probably came out with his head held high. Now, not as much can be said about his opposite number. But after that, it was just one-way traffic for Man City. Of course, everyone noticed and is talking about that insane 4-man front line that City were using. When you watch it back and you kind of think about it a little bit, it seems pretty basic, right? Not pressing the goalkeeper when he's on the ball as well as the 2 centre-backs, and therefore not leaving any gaps for the goalkeeper or the centre-backs to pass into when you're pressing them, and also cutting all the passing lanes on the ground, forcing them to go long and wide, and gambling on the second ball. The long balls often went to the wings, often to Kai Havertz. I guess he is the tallest. Havertz is notoriously not considered to be as good in the air as his height suggests. Plus, he's not exactly up to full match fitness after a long injury absence. What makes it even worse is that Havertz obviously naturally drifts over to the right-hand side, and he was met with Nico O'Reilly, City's left back, who is, quite famously, quite good in the air, as Arsenal found out again and again and again and many times over the course of this game. Likewise, on the surface, you would think that there is kind of a simple way that you would get past this City non-press tactic. And I'm saying this with the heavy caveat that I'm a man in his spare bedroom talking into a camera all alone. You guys don't even know if I'm wearing pants right now. So I don't know what's going on with what managers think and how they maneuver through all these tactics. I feel like there are a couple ways you could potentially counteract this, and we saw Arteta try at least one of them in the second half. Keep your striker forward, pinning the opposition centre-backs, bring your wingers back infield to add some support and width and passing options. Encourage more movement by your central midfielders to find spaces and angles, or simply just do nothing at all and wait for City to do something because they would have to at some point. This one would only really work when the game was still tied though, but I think that we're kind of overthinking this. What I think is that Arsenal were just confused. All of that what I've just said is in theory. In practice, I'm really not sure these Arsenal players could comprehend what they were seeing. Like when you looked at the looks on Gabriel's face, on Saliba's face, on Kepa's face, when they weren't getting pressed, they spend so much time practicing these game scenarios and practicing how to pass around rushing players for it to just not happen, and those normal spaces and sequences that they're used to not open up. It probably caused some brain malfunctioning to go on. Add on on the fact that neither Eze nor Odegaard were playing, them being players that are specialists at finding space and being found by teammates, and you have a really horrible showing from the Gunners. Like I said, to the mind of the average spectator, the stupid spectator in my case, you would think that there are plenty passing options here. But again, as I said, we tend to forget that these are people thinking in real time. They have a set game plan and they just got blindsided. I can't recall the last time I saw something where a team just looked so shell-shocked at a tactic in such a high-profile, high-level game. I'm thinking, when I was putting up the notes for this, I was thinking maybe PSG early on in the Champions League last season with their touchline kickoffs. Now, regardless of what you think, how easy or how difficult you think it was to win the tactical battle in this game or outsmart the opposition, it doesn't actually matter. Because these are high-level people, literally at the very top of the game, and this is where coaches earn their money. Any one of us can put together a lineup with the best players on the planet, but when the unfamiliar rears its head, a coach needs to adjust. Arteta never did. I think probably the greatest testament to that is that Hincapié was being torn apart from the very first City attack. Semenyo had him on skates, and Trossard was not helping whatsoever. But it just kept happening over and over and over again, and all of City's meaningful attacks, including their goals, came from the right-hand side, which clearly isn't a coincidence. Mikel Arteta only took him off after the second goal was already scored. Now, Calafiori did come on and City didn't score again, but we also can't really use that as a metric to determine whether he would have done better if he had come on earlier on, because City had decided to take their foot off the pedal after that second goal in any case and protect their lead. But I just think a little bit more could have been done from Arteta, perhaps, in this situation. I don't know. What do you guys think? Am I waffling or what? After that early burst, Arsenal just never tried to push for anything. The loudest cheers that Arsenal got from the crowd in the stadium was when they won their first corner. And after that, it was pretty much just crickets from the Arsenal fans. Of course, the coach can't take the blame for individual errors. Kepa, as we've already said, is clearly the most egregious offender. The fact that he held Jeremy Doku back, fouling him on the edge of the box and got away with a yellow is odd to me. I get that he's outside of the box and the angle is narrow, but he's quite literally the last man and preventing the attacker from advancing. I also recognize that a light pull doesn't exactly scream red card. I'm not saying it does. I'm just arguing more from a denying of a clear goal scoring opportunity perspective. I'm actually not that bothered about the yellow card, to be fair, but I think we can all agree that it was a foul. And if it's a foul, and if it's only a yellow card, then why not play on? Doku only stopped playing when the whistle blew. He was upright, he could have gone on. So that was just one thing from Kepa, but the amount of passes that went wayward and led to turnovers or just straight interceptions was quite high from the keeper. And then the cherry on the cake. Cherries on the cake. Drops across from Cherki in the worst possible spot. Moments after that, he gives the ball to Saliba, who has to rush to clear it because Doku was pressing him hard, and he gives possession away. City return, and Nunez gives O'Reilly the cross that seals the win. Horrible, horrible game from Kepa, really one to forget, and he does seem to have some really terrible cup luck in English football. Runner-up in the FA Cup 3 times for Chelsea, runner-up in the EFL Cup twice for Chelsea, once now for Arsenal. And he's played every game for Arsenal in the FA Cup this season so far, so it'll be interesting to see how things turn out there. But of course, he wasn't the only one. Arsenal were bad from top to bottom. Saka was non-existent, Trossard was non-existent. I just checked now, and Havertz won no aerial duels, no tackles, 1 ground duel out of 6, and I guess you might say that means nothing because he was playing as an attacking midfielder, but he was also playing as Arsenal's outball, so I think it's somewhat significant. Even still, outside of an early opportunity that he missed, he didn't really have that much effect on the game at all. And on that thought that I had earlier on about Arsenal players not really doing enough to effectively avail themselves and try and counteract this tactic that City were putting in, I thought that Martin Zubimendi and Declan Rice were particularly awful. Bernardo Silva was covering both of them throughout the game and kind of making it look easy. And on the note of Bernardo Silva, he is phenomenal. The man keeps trying to leave City every season and it never works. They won't let him leave.
What are you doing, my friend?
I swear when it's not game day, they chain him up, and then when it is time to play ball, they let him loose, and he has a phenomenal performance. And it's quite funny when you contrast the fact that he's been trying to leave City every season. We have the rumors, Barcelona, all of that comes up all the time. Even still, there is a really, really strong case to be made, and bear with me now, that he is arguably Man City's most important player over the last 9 years that he's been at the club. Of course, it's a really big claim. We know how long he's been around for and who's been around while he's been around. It's not even a take that I particularly agree with 100%, but it's a fair take. I think it is fair. He's only ever played less than 33 games in the Premier League season one time in 9 seasons. This season, he's on 30 and on course to continue the trend. Meanwhile, he's played in every outfield position bar right back and I guess centre back and done so really well, and now he's won 5 Premier League titles, 3 FA Cups and now 5 EFL Cups, and this one he gets to lift as the captain. It's pretty obvious that as soon as Bernardo Silva leaves, City are going to have a very big problem. Antoine Semenyo, as I've already mentioned, had a blinder of a game. He's already integrated really well into this City side. He came very close to setting up Erling Haaland more than once, and like I said earlier on, it's not a coincidence that all of City's most dangerous attacks came from the right-hand side. O'Reilly, we've already spoken about. He's a gem. Big, strong, scoring touch, great at left back, even though it's not his natural position. Deservedly man of the match. Ryan Cherky as well was phenomenal. It's always nice to see a good combination of flair and effectiveness. Of course, Guardiola infamously does not like the flair, and the amount of times that in this game in particular he was doing some skill moves here and there and then the camera would pan over to Guardiola losing his mind was quite funny. But it's clearly not become bad enough that Guardiola is willing to drop him. By the end of the game, he had Arsenal's defenders just giving up. And then finally, Matheus Nunes was also fantastic. He was great going forward, and it's nice to see him playing well because I'm pretty sure that I remember a lot of people giving up on him early in his City career. He was kind of getting the Calvin Phillips treatment. Fantastic for James Trafford. At least now he gets to take a little bit of the limelight away from Gianluigi friggin' Donnarumma. The League Cup is always quite a funny one. It's a major trophy when you win it, but then when you don't, it's Mickey Mouse. And we're seeing this kind of treatment going on right now amongst the Arsenal supporters, and of course I get it. And listen, Arsenal will win the league, right? Bar something sensational happening over the course of the next few weeks, which I don't see happening, but would be. They're still in the FA Cup. They're favourites in the Champions League to move into the semi-finals ahead of Sporting at the very least, I think. And I'm pretty sure they're going to win a title, like I've already said this year. Those celebrations are just going to have to be postponed by a couple of weeks. But they're in a bit of a precarious situation right now because in my mind, there are 2 things that can happen for Arsenal right now. Number 1 is that this is a wake-up call and they eventually, after the international break, really regroup, use this as a platform and just go crazy for the remainder of the year. Or number 2, this is a low that just derails everything. And I kind of think that the second one is a lot less likely, but you never know. I think like a lot of people have always joked that Guardiola needs to leave the league and kind of just leave us all in peace, but now faced with the prospect of it actually happening, I think it'll be really tough without him. Watching the exaggerated reactions, watching him kick sideboards in celebration, the overreaction. Congratulations to City. Arsenal, you need to regroup. And just a couple thoughts from other games and other teams just to end this one off. Chelsea are in a bad way right now. They're in this cycle that they just always seem to be in. A new manager comes in and everything falls apart. Liam Rosenior was really thought of for a couple weeks after coming in, but now everyone's defaulted to how he was just kind of the beneficiary of the walls that Maresca built up. That's the narrative that we're getting at least right now. People are calling him LinkedIn Liam. I think that's really mean. You think he's just aging his men too much or what? Chelsea are not running enough. All the headlines are talking about this. The team sheet keeps getting leaked. I wonder who's doing it. They now keep losing. They got battered by PSG in the Champions League 8-2, and then they've just lost again now, 3-0 against Everton. And now it's come up that they've been fined for financial doping, with cases such as Eden Hazard signing, and by the way, Hazard is arguably Chelsea's best player of all time, being linked to fraud via illegal payments to agents. I'm not even a Chelsea supporter, but I think those fans deserve just one day of peace. Just a little bit of normalcy. Can Blueco do at least that for them? I watched Man United get robbed on Friday night. I guess a lot has already been said about the inconsistency of the referee, especially in terms of the fouls that were given and not given. A pull on Amad Diallo was not given, only for Bournemouth to score a goal a couple seconds later. Later on in the game, Harry Maguire is sent off for a less egregious but similar looking foul. It really does call into question what is going on in the VAR room as well as in the heads of these referees, because obviously a lot of people have pointed out that United didn't get that foul because they had already gotten a penalty pretty recently, and VAR is controlled by the PGMOL, who are just referees anyway, and we all know that this is an all-boys club and they don't want to overrule and make their friends look bad, so they just let on-field decisions stand. There probably needs to be some degree of separation there in terms of hiring, in terms of how these guys fraternize with each other, who benefits from what. I don't know. It's odd. As for Spurs and Liverpool, I didn't watch their games, but it's quite funny because winning in midweek for both of these teams was seen by a lot of people as kind of a turning point. Even though different situations, different circumstances, Liverpool are still in the Champions League. Spurs just had a bit of a consolation, but it seems that it's not done very much for them because they've only gone ahead and lost to their main competition in this relegation scrap and now sit 1 point above the relegation spots, which is really poor. I really can't believe that a £1 billion stadium is going to be in the Championship. And just to add to all of the misfortune, Igor Tudor just apparently lost his father, and you can't expect him to worry about something like a relegation battle with Tottenham Hotspur or a job when this sort of thing is happening in his life. So it's everything is just going really poorly, and my thoughts and my heart goes out to Tudor. I hope that him and his family can find some peace. Likewise, Liverpool are losing ground, and you have to imagine at this point that the only thing that's going to keep Arne Slot in a job next season is winning the Champions League, which I don't know how likely that is given previous and recent performances, but I've been wrong before. Anyway, that's all for me today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know how you thought, what you thought about the weekend's matches, the Carabao Cup, all that good stuff. That's all for me today. Emery video will be out this week, for sure. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're having a great day. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.